Picture this. You're sitting with your friends, other moms who have gone through a divorce or are contemplating, who maybe didn't picture their lives co-parenting, but are there with you. You're sharing your stories, you're inspiring each other, validating and challenging each other through your shared experiences. You're belly laughing, tearing up, and enjoying your favorite cup of coffee all at the same time. You don't judge each other, you empower each other to continue on your journey, to heal, and to just be you, whatever that looks like. Welcome to Co-Parenting and Coffee. Thank you for joining us. We are both co-parenting and are excited to have you as part of our journey.
Hello.
Hi, we're back.
We're back. Feels like way too long, which we're sorry about.
Yeah, this has been like a slipping uphill kind of fall for us, I
Yeah.
think.
We're
Um,
trying. We're
we
really
are we're
trying.
doing
We
our
promise.
best. Just please know that, and
Yeah.
maybe someday when it's a little further behind us, we'll
We'll
discuss
get
it
more into
all.
it. Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, Jill and I, we're fine, like we're
Yes.
good as ever. But
It's
life
just been
happens.
fun. Yeah.
Life has
I mean,
been
we're
hard.
moms too. Like, we're doing our best here.
Are we
I
moms
think that's my
too?
motto. I'm just doing my best. I'm
Just
just
doing
doing
my
my
best. Oh, no, and I think it's like also my philosophy on a lot of things is like just put one foot in front of the other,
best.
like
Hmm.
cross the
Got
bridges
to.
as they come, and I think
Yeah.
that's applicable for like any situation
Yeah.
where you're navigating your whether it's you're getting you're in the middle of getting divorced or you're talking
Hmm.
about it or
Right.
you're divorce is behind you but now you're dealing with your toxic co-parent or your kids are struggling, just one thing at a time, one day at a
Yeah.
time.
You got to. I
um
think that it's actually a skill that I really have developed from getting divorced, actually.
oh, it teaches you so much, like
Hmm.
you don't realize what a teacher divorce is when you're going into it because, well, I mean, first of all, it's not like when you get married, like they explain how you get divorced, right?
Right.
It's like,
Even when you're getting divorced, they don't explain it.
yeah, you have to figure it all
Because
out
it's
for
so
yourself.
different for everybody. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true too, but I
Mhm.
distinctly remember like being like, where I don't know where to find out about. Let me start
Bless
over.
you.
Thank you. I don't know where to start. Like what do I do? How do you find, resources? What do I
Right.
need? Is this
Right.
going to be expensive? How?
Right.
And so I had to find the resources and hopefully we can help with that here. But
Yeah.
um yeah. One of the things we talked about the other day that I wanted to bring up is
Mhm.
that I love to see women, particularly, but men too,
Mhm.
coming out of their horrible experience of a relationship or marriage and become the best version of themselves.
Oh my God,
And
that's my favorite part.
yeah,
I mean, I say this all the time, but that's my like reason I will do my support group forever because I get to see women coming in like in the hardest, like sometimes women come in and they don't even speak, they just cry the whole time.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
just want to give them a hug, right? And then like to get to see them discover their strength and, discover everything about themselves and really get to choose, you know, in some ways, not in every way, but to get to like their next step is like it's such a like
yeah,
privilege that I do not take for granted. Like
yeah.
you, I get to do that with you.
They
I
get to
mean,
do it
you're not
with
thinking
me.
you're crying, but
And it's true. I mean, and I've seen it on the other end of
hmm
seeing women come in who are scared and
hmm
worried and unsure,
yeah,
and step by step and day by day they get a little stronger, they get a little more confident, and then one day it's all that period, that moment in time is behind them.
yeah,
And yeah, I don't so my point being, I don't think everybody should get divorced, just like you said that
no,
you don't think everybody should get divorced. But I do think that and I was one of these people who, you're in a marriage and you're like, is this it?
Mm-hmm.
Is this what I deserve?
Right.
And finally I decided that it wasn't. Like,
Mm-hmm.
being alone would be better than being in a relationship that was completely not what am I trying to say? It just wasn't what it was, and it was clearly never going to be.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've heard you say before. It's like
Yeah.
you realize that it just was never going to be what you wanted it to be.
Yeah, and I think there was promise for a while, but
Yeah.
I the lesson I've learned from that is I'm not looking for potential
Yeah, well, that's a
going forward, right?
hard lesson to learn
Take
for
every
sure.
take everything for what it is at the moment
Yeah.
you're in. So,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
um, we could talk more about the, how I why and how I thought those things, but
Yeah.
should we so today we're falling back, right?
Yeah.
Daylight
Oh my
savings.
God.
How
I
did
mean,
that go
I
for
kind of like
you?
the extra hour of sleep, but
No,
I like it.
you
But I
well,
don't like the like it's getting dark right now.
I mean, so I went to bed last night and forgot to change the clocks. And granted, I don't have kids with me this weekend, so I have the luxury of, waking up when I feel like it. And I woke up and the clock said 7:30 and I felt like awake. So I was like, okay. And then like literally 5 minutes later, I was like,
Look at your phone.
it's
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It was like it's good because that means that I'm not going to be, wide awake when I go to bed tonight. And
Mhm.
but the part with I think that it's harder with little kids. Like I
Oh my
feel like
God,
that's
it's
the
so hard with yeah. I mean, I'm just talking about the I like the extra hour of sleep, but like
sure.
tonight is going to be awful. And yeah, I mean,
Even with
all
a
these things,
9-year-old, really?
yeah, not as bad, I guess, but it's like so she's coming home. She went to her dad's for the day, so she'll come home tonight at the regular time, but it's actually an hour later. So she's going to be a hot mess by the time she gets home because it's going to be 8 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. So the hour of, I mean, it's actually going to be 7 o'clock, but it's going to feel like
Feel
8.
like 8 o'clock. Okay, thank you because I'm always like, wait.
I know what's happening. So
Yeah, so
she's
it's
going to
gonna
be,
feel like 8 o'clock. Yeah,
yeah. So she's going to be tired,
yeah.
and you know, it is what it is. But yeah, no, it's definitely easier as they get older, for sure.
And I have to be honest, I can't remember the last time I had the kids on a time change. Luck be having it. So
I
I
think the
mean,
spring one is harder.
it totally is, especially come Monday morning when you have to get the kids out of bed and they're like, "What do
No,
you mean I have
early.
to get up? It's 5 a.m." And you're like, "No,
Right.
it's 6."
Right.
And I know your body thinks it's 5
Right.
and it really is 5, but we're all going to call it 6. So,
Right. We're calling it 6. I think we
oh
should do
my
the
God.
quote.
We should do the quote. We should do the quote. All right. This is a long one, but I really love this. And it's called This Is How You Find Your Way. There comes a day when you realize that the fear never really goes away, that if you really want something, you have to be willing to do it afraid. And maybe this is the only way you ever get to discover your fullest potential. Maybe you just have to dive right in and face the thing that scares you the most. Because in the end, it's not the rejections and so called failures that will haunt you, it will be your own potential left unexplored. So maybe you don't need to wait until you overcome your fears to take the first step forward. Maybe you just need to know that there's something more important than fear, something greater, something worth fighting for. And maybe overcoming your fears is the least important part of your story anyway. Maybe what matters is that you're scared but still determined, shaky but still standing, afraid but still willing to try. And this is from a book called This Is How You Find Your Way. And I need to figure out, we'll have to credit it on the show notes because this is just, I mean, this is what I was talking about, right? Like,
Yeah, it's such a good quote. I love it. I think it's so true. And there's so many times, honestly, anytime I've had like personal, professional, any kind of growth, there's fear attached to that, right?
yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like nothing worth doing is ever easy.
Right.
So, I'm not sitting here trying to convince someone on the fence to pull the trigger on this, but
Right.
I think that you're going to be scared no matter what, right? So if you're
Yes.
waiting for the day when you're not afraid to
Right.
to make that decision, like it's never going to come.
Right.
I also want to say, it's like shifting gears to think about our coffee date, which I can't wait to share.
Mm.
Um, this when you go through the experience of splitting up with someone, it's like we said before, a moment in time,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have all that time together of you're not together, but you're still parenting children together for the years and years after. And I think sometimes people get wrapped up in worrying about the future, and the fact of the matter is, divorce is only really, at least where we live, they only capture that moment in time, and things are
Mm-hmm.
going to change in the years ahead.
Oh my God,
And so
absolutely are.
you don't have to feel that, there's certain things that are final, but like, especially when it comes to your kids, like whatever the judgment is that you end up landing on or receiving, isn't the forever answer. And there
Right.
are a lot of things that could go into that. But hopefully this conversation that we have will give people something to think about as they consider their process of, either negotiating the terms of an agreement or revisiting it.
Yeah. They're awesome, so I'm excited to share it.
Yeah. All right. We're going to introduce you to Julie and Heidi. Thanks.
Bye.
All right, and we're back. Super duper excited to introduce our guests for our coffee date today. First, I want to introduce the Honorable Julie Kuntzfield. In 2021, Judge Field retired from the trial court bench in the 8th Judicial District for Colorado after almost 11 years to co-found the Concilium Institute and J. Field Mediation. Judge Field is recognized throughout Colorado and nationally for her leadership and trainings on issues related to domestic relations, domestic violence, mental health, mediation, trial practice, and judicial and community education. Before her appointment to the bench, Judge Field was a law professor and law clinic director at the University of Michigan, Washburn Law School, and the University of Denver. She co-founded the Confidentiality Institute in 2001, which focused on law and ethics related to privacy and safety for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. As a trial judge, she presided over a mixed docket of felony, complex civil litigation, domestic relations, appeals, and child abuse and neglect, among other cases. She created and oversaw the award-winning Wellness Court, a unique mental health problem-solving court. Judge Fields received her BA from the University of Nebraska and her JD from the University of Chicago. Judge Field's three passions are helping people figure out things they can't decide for themselves, teaching, and changing the world for the better. All three of those passions are achievable for Judge Field and all family law professionals through the innovative Concilium Institute. And additionally, we have with us attorney Heidi Webb, who is the creator of the innovative Concilium process, which works with clients, attorneys, and judges and other allied professionals to navigate a better way through divorce. Heidi has been licensed to practice law in Massachusetts and before the federal district and appeals courts since 1986. She joined her family's law firm, Webb and Martin, established by her grandfather in 1912. She developed her practice in family law, representing parents and children as an attorney and guardian ad litem. Heidi is trained as a mediator and a collaborative attorney. Prior to becoming a lawyer, Heidi received her master's degree in education from Harvard University, where she concentrated in counseling and counseling psychology. Heidi has also worked for the Department of Social Services, now DCF, investigating cases of child abuse and neglect, the Mental Health Legal Advisors Committee, advising psychiatric patients of their legal rights, and the Office of the Middlesex District Attorney. Heidi is a member of the Massachusetts Bar Association and a former member of the Massachusetts Collaborative Law Council and of the Social Law Library. She has served as an elected member of the Middlesex County Bar Association. Heidi currently serves on the board of the Webb Innovation Center for Dyslexia. Welcome, Heidi and
Wow.
Julie.
Thank you so much.
I mean, we kind of have slackers on today.
I know, right?
Yeah,
I know. Sorry.
I was like, I'm just gonna go. I'm actually gonna go.
You got to do something every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, real low achievers.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us. We're looking forward to the coffee and conversation.
100%.
Yeah, we're very excited. I guess sort of how I would want to start is just asking about the concilium process and like what got you to here.
Sure. It's a story, as most things in life are, right? We all have a
I
journey,
love a good story.
and I'll tell you the story. Um, as Ali said, I started practicing law in a firm that had been long established, and it wasn't a firm that had a family law section traditionally. But when I had gone through sort of the paces of that firm, which was more, a litigation firm, but in real estate, in personal injury, and medical malpractice, it had sort of other areas, which was great foundation for my learning. But I sort of knew from my background in counseling, consulting, psychology that I wanted to do something more with families. So I was fortunate that I was able to establish a practice with their support early on in my career. And I did that for a number of years. And then I had a couple of children, and then I had a third child, and it was a little bit like untenable to be doing my life as I was doing it, and I'd never really stayed home with a baby. I'd been working.
Yeah.
And I decided I really, this was going to be my last child, and I wanted to have that experience. I was going to stay home for a year and sort of reevaluate what I wanted to do and how I wanted to raise my family, my kids, and also work. So during that time frame, or sometime after it, that period stretched a little bit longer, I was watching the 11 o'clock news one night, which is something people used to do, and on flashed the image of a young Marine killed in Iraq who I recognized as the son of a former client of mine, and was obviously devastated, and called her and learned when his funeral would be. And went to his funeral, and at it, one of his high school teachers eulogized him, saying in part the reason he joined the Marines was because he felt like he'd never had a family. And I sat in that pew and I just thought, my God, what was my role in that? And, we had spent so much emotional energy, so much money, so much time, so much investment in very well-meaning parents with very different perspectives, but in and of themselves very well-meaning. And by many metrics, the outcomes had actually been quite good if you just looked at legal outcomes in terms of support and asset division and even time sharing. But I thought, it clearly hadn't been good enough for this young man. So I thought I'd redouble my efforts, and I'd go back and I'd start to rethink paradigms that maybe were different. And I asked this pretty audacious question, which was, why is English contract law the best paradigm, the best construct for families that are restructuring now in this century?
Right.
We base this on feudal law. We base this on long ago things that had to do with property divisions and kingdoms and all sorts of things that we've inherited perspectives on. And we have a lot of case law that's very relevant, obviously, and statutes that apply. And there are lots of good things here too. And I'm not talking about erasing that, but understanding that human development and child development, and there are many other lenses we can look through. Yeah. And I sort of did an overlay of these other theories with an eye toward looking for things that I could extrapolate and extract from them and use in a legal process, in all legal processes. So whether or not it was litigation, mediation, arbitration, collaborative law, conciliation, how could I find something, some common themes that families really need when they're restructuring and that they can use. And I decided that there should be two paths that people would travel, or not I decided, but it appeared to me that there were two paths. There's your own path of growth, whoever the individual is who's going through this process, and there's the divorce. And the divorce is something that is happening in your life, but it's not who you are. And never in my many, many long years now has somebody walked into my office and said, at the end of this, what I really want is a court judgment.
Right. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. No.
And by the way, what I really want to do is blow up my family and get everybody really unhappy.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No one does that.
Yeah.
But yet as lawyers, the training wasn't to say, why is this your next best move? You know, what is this? The idea as a lawyer was, I want to get a retainer and I want to start people on the path of divorce, file the complaint, get the discovery process going, and all of that. But that wasn't what I felt was going to serve families.
Right.
So I started asking a lot of different questions about why someone was embarking on this journey and what it was they were really hoping to achieve. Not that I wasn't going to attend to their legal needs,
Right.
but it seemed to me that without understanding more fully the picture of what they were trying to achieve, I couldn't really help someone attain what they were hoping to have in the end. Because it's a fiction to think that by getting divorced, you're going to solve all this other panoply of issues in someone's life that may or may not be part of the marriage.
Right.
And so then I was able to start distilling this process into, these are things that are achievable in court. These are things that are absolutely outside the court realm. Who is it who would help that person? A financial planner.
Right.
Oh, this person absolutely needs some mental health support. What are the sort of legs of this stool? And it seemed to me that there were three primary people that needed to partner together to really have an effective outcome. And that would be lawyers, financial advisors, and mental health therapists. And that began sort of this tapestry that we've been building, Julie and I, since we created the Institute and created a mastery course to teach these three different sectors and allied professionals the theory behind Concilium process and teach attorneys how to implement it and where the other people can intersect along the way.
Yeah.
And I've been talking for a really long time about that.
No, but it was really, thank you for sharing that story. It was really, impactful. I think it's so true. It's not like just a legal process. Like there is so much involved in divorce. So it's nice to recognize that for sure.
Yeah.
And to provide your clients with that opportunity to have all of that support, because it can be very
Right.
confusing and you don't know who to ask. And so if you have those three pieces in place, you're already have a leg up, right?
Right. And I think the truth is, at the very first interview, I start using the language of restructuring a family, not divorce.
Right.
And it's not that a couple's not divorcing, but a family doesn't divorce. A family restructures. So part of what the Concilium process is partly I took things from a non-pathologizing psychological theory, and partly I took it from a business restructuring model.
Right.
And they came out of MIT Sloan School of Management. And thought, really we have a hierarchy in a family, and we're changing that. So just like a business organizes in a bankruptcy, you don't have to dissolve it, you can reorganize it. What is that? And so how do you help manifest that? And how do you help someone create that and envision what it is they're looking towards? So instead of just being reactive through a legal process, you're actually being proactive in the creation of something new and iterative. So
my question to that though, can this be a one-sided system? Like if I'm
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
like I'm all in,
Yeah.
right? I'm signed up.
Yes.
I think that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Let me talk about that a little bit, if I could, right? Because Heidi talked about the origin of the Concilium process and the foundations of it. I want to start also just recognizing what the name means. Concilium, the name itself means Council of Wise Advisors. And it comes from ancient Greece, and where a judge would bring together on a family dispute, would bring together his concilium of advisors, and those were the people that knew that family best. And so we're replicating that by bringing together the different professions who can work with the person who is the client. They can also work with the whole family, but it works with just working with the client. And Heidi created the Concilium process in the brilliant way and for the remarkable reasons that she talked about, but she brought it to me. She brought it to me actually before I was on the bench. And I spent a lot of time in my career as a law professor, as an attorney, I like to start institutes, apparently, the Confidentiality Institute, and then this one, doing, sort of deeper thinking about how can we change our systems? How can we change our laws? How can we change our rules? How can we make this better for people? And the beauty of what Heidi has created in the Concilium process, and the reason that I left my cushy and powerful job as a judge to do this, is because this is a game changer that only one side, only one person, only one attorney, only one team of allied professionals needs to be involved. Because what it does is it changes the perspective and the goals and the understanding of what a good outcome is from the perspective of one person, one attorney. And it applies in whatever process, court process or rules you're operating in. So it works in Colorado, where I'm at. It works in Massachusetts, where Heidi's at. It works in New York. It works if only one side, so to speak, is signed on, and it works in litigation, mediation, arbitration, collaboration, whatever the court process is. It doesn't matter, because it's shifting that perspective. And Heidi can talk about how for years she was the only person doing the Concilium approach very successfully for her clients. And now we're fortunate in building the tapestry that we are expanding the expertise really around the country of people who have this knowledge base and who are shifting the perspective. It's better when both sides, when both attorneys are using that approach, but it's not prohibitive. It's not like some different processes, everybody has to sign on to a particular way of doing things. Here, you're changing the perspective. You don't have to have everybody signed on to a rigid set of rules and approaches, because it applies wherever you're at.
I was actually going to offer this other thought too. I sometimes equate it with, putting a stone at the bottom of a running stream and diverting it. And the reason I think it's a good analogy is because it's one stone, right? And it causes a whole different sort of set of events to occur because of that. And following up on what Julie said, I think it's interesting because people sometimes think that like collaborative law is prescriptive in a way. Both people have to sign on. So is litigation. So is mediation. Any of these processes, right? Everybody agrees we're going to apply this system. But with Concilium, it's not true, because like you can wake up in the morning and you can walk out the door and your attitude is going to control a lot of things that happen in your day, your perspective.
For sure.
Now, it's not that you can control somebody else necessarily to adopt your perspective. Better, you can partner with somebody more effectively. There are a lot of things, if you have a shared vision, you can do better together. But just your one act and your one perspective alone is a game changer. So I think that's what, that's sort of what it gives it sort of great advantage. The other thing I'll say that Julie didn't say is that when she was on the bench, she started writing orders that were based on Concilium process, and I think it would be wonderful for her to talk a little bit about that, because that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, so before I decided to leave my cushy, powerful job as a judge, I made Heidi teach me the Concilium process, because we had had many conversations about it. We actually had written a book about the process designed for clients. But then what we realized is it's really because the clients would read the book, be excited about the process, and take it to a lawyer, and the lawyer would say, oh yeah, another self-help book. Yeah, I get, who needs this, right?
Yeah, you need to level up.
So we needed to be sure that it was the professionals who were involved who really understood what a game changer this was, right? So Heidi said, can we teach lawyers, judges, financial professionals, and therapists, and would you leave the bench to help me start this institute to do that? And I said, well, show me, right? I lived in Missouri for a while, so show me, right? Prove it to me. Um, Show me what this is, and we'll see. I'll see. I put my little skeptic hat on.
Yeah.
So she taught it to me. We had Monday night seminars for several months, and she taught me the process. We talked about how it applies to lawyers and how I could apply it on the bench. So I started doing that.
Yeah.
I started doing it in the questions that I asked the parties. I started doing it in the orders that I wrote. I started doing it in the directions that I gave to people in terms of, what I expected them to do, including the family members that would come to court as supporters, right? And I would give direction to them as well. Although technically, can I order them to do things? No. But can I give them ideas and suggestions? Absolutely. So I started doing that, and I have examples of my before concilium orders, and I think I was a pretty darn good judge before. But I have my before concilium orders and my after concilium orders. And what I saw and again, in an anecdotal, one judge applying this and diverting that stream kind of way, I saw people that may have come back to court repeatedly before
Yeah.
that didn't, because they had everything that they needed in order to restructure their families in healthy ways. My goal as a judge always was to help people be self-governing after divorce,
Okay.
because that's what we want, right? We don't want people to have to come back to court to get further direction or further orders or further have somebody else deciding important things for them about their kids, right? And so my goal was that, and I found that Concilium process gave me tools that allowed me to ensure that self-governing piece was more likely to stick. So after applying it, and after using it for several months, I said, okay, I'll leave my, powerful, cushy job as a judge to do this thing. So here we are, 3 years later. Yeah.
Julie, could you give an example of sort of what a before judgment might have looked like versus an after judgment?
Yeah. So, I have examples. I'm actually writing this up as a book for people to use as a resource. But instead of just the, pick up on Friday and drop off on Monday, those kind of nuts and bolts, right? A judge has to do the nuts and bolts. So I did the nuts and bolts, but I also did it with encouraging language about who the parents were and what the expectations were, and did a lot of prefatory pieces before the nuts and bolts of what they can and should expect from each other. I did a lot of that in the courtroom as well, so it may not be entirely reflected in the court order, except to say, parties will recall that we discussed, that you represented to me, Mom, that these were high priorities for you, and that you would engage with Dad. And Dad, you represented to me in court. And I always loved involving the grandmas when they would come and testify, because very often, not always, but very often the grandmas would come in and say, I don't understand why they just can't get along. I'm here testifying for my child about my grandchildren, but I would ask probing questions like, what do you want to see, Grandma? What do you think would work? And then I could put that into my order and say, listen to the grandmas. Grandma said that you guys can work this out, and that you have the ability to do that.
We had a question that we wrote down earlier when planning and prepping. And this sort of fits in here, but I guess more speaking on your experience as a judge, and maybe even your experience with this. But we've had a lot of people that we've come across that have very clearly to us who are not judges, It's like litigation abuse, like where they're
Oh,
taking them
yeah.
back to court all the time for little stupid stuff or just draining them financially. Where,
Yeah.
like, when you're talking about the conciliation, like, when you're talking about this, can that litigation abuse be changed in any way? Or, like, how do you see the litigation abuse?
like headed off,
How
or
how do you head that off at the pass?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, litigation abuse often is an outgrowth of other abuse in the family, right?
yeah,
Domestic
yep,
violence, intimate partner violence. And so that needs to be recognized when there is domestic violence, when there is that intimate partner violence in a relationship,
Yeah.
then those cases need to be understood to be that,
Right.
and there need to be um, parameters put in place that are very clear
Hmm.
with very clear outcomes. And one thing that judges can do, and that I would do, is
Hmm.
to require accountability and for people to come back, for the abusive person who was
Hmm.
misusing the
Hmm.
process to come to court, not requiring the other party necessarily to come to court, because
Hmm.
the whole goal was to bring that
Right.
other party into court
Right.
to continue to harass
Re-traumatize.
them and make
Yeah.
them pay
yeah,
attorney's fees and all the things.
Hmm.
But I could call the abusive person into court
Hmm.
for accountability. I ordered you to do domestic violence treatment.
Right.
You come back and tell me about that. Not requiring the other person to come back and listen to the report,
Right.
right? So but making sure that those protections were in place.
Right.
There are a lot of tools that judges have
Hmm.
that very often in family law cases they're reluctant to use.
yeah,
Hmm.
Um, but I think because of my background in domestic violence and understanding coercive control and the power and control dynamics, I think I was more uh, able to effectively impose limits and orders that helped to control the abusive party.
Hmm.
Really, what needs to happen is the control needs to shift.
Yeah.
And judges don't always recognize that the
No.
control needs to shift.
Hmm.
And the first shift can be that the power and control goes to the court,
Right.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes that has to be,
right?
right? Like, yeah.
It has to be, absolutely. I think that's because the abusive person needs to understand this is going to stop.
Right.
yeah,
I think one of the other, I think I agree with everything that you said, of course, but I think also that there are times when someone who has been victimized in a marriage hires a lawyer who they think will be protective, but
Mhm.
in fact, they sort of get into another dynamic that
Oh my
isn't
God.
necessarily
Yes.
abusive, but it's also they don't have a voice.
Right.
Right.
They sort of recreate that.
Yeah.
So I think part of what the concilium process does is it really cares deeply about the agency of the client,
Right.
and
Hmm. Yeah.
it makes the attorney understand how
Hmm.
important it is
Hmm.
to have the voice of the client be heard, or the
Right.
voice of
yeah,
the individual who's experiencing this, because oftentimes it gets either shifted, or there are assumptions that are made,
Hmm.
or the person who's been abused for so long is afraid to voice what they really feel because the attorney's
Right.
another authority figure, or
Right.
they've told it once and they feel like they can't say it again.
Right.
Well, there are a lot of dynamics that sort of develop in that realm
Yes.
that keep a system sort of going. In sometimes it's not malicious, it's inadvertent perhaps, but
Hmm.
it's not attended to.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
We hear
Yeah. And
that
it's, go ahead.
often. We hear that
Hmm.
often. I mean, like that dynamic of picking a lawyer that then isn't listening to you and you feel,
Yep.
or the like abuse victim is like almost like re-traumatized by their lawyer. Like that's
Exactly.
Hmm.
definitely something I've heard many times. And then
Yeah.
the fear, and actually maybe Julie, you can speak on this as a former judge. Sometimes when you get in that dynamic and then you realize it, you're kind of like coming out of a domestic violence situation or coercive control, and then you're realizing this lawyer is not the right fit for me, like not listening, whatever.
Right.
Do judges have a problem with if you switch lawyers,
In
like in a case?
so right, the circumstances are right. It's circumstance dependent, right? So a lot
Yeah,
of times, right, and you need to understand as a judge, you need to understand kind of what the basis for the switch is,
right,
right? And the timing of the switch can
right.
be have an impact as well. A lot of
Mhm.
times I would see abusive parties
Mhm.
switching lawyers on the eve of trial, right? And saying, "Oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah. That's
I
like
know we have
textbook,
trial."
like
Yeah,
textbook.
yeah, funny how that works, that
Mhm.
timing, right? I just all of a sudden don't get along with my lawyer, right?
Mhm.
A week before trial.
Mhm.
And the judge has the ultimate authority to say, no, you're not, that person is not going to be either let out, the attorney, or that's fine if you want to fire him on the eve of trial, sir, but you're going to trial. You're ready
There's
for
moving
trial. We're a
forward.
week from trial. This is not going to extend for that reason.
Mhm.
If you've got someone that is feeling bullied by their attorney,
Mhm.
I think that it, oftentimes the way that is presented to the court, I don't get
Mhm.
behind that necessarily,
Mhm.
but I can get enough of a flavor of that even if it is in that instance the victimized parent or
Mhm.
party is asking to change their attorney, a
Mhm.
lot of times that kind of information can come out in a veiled way that I
Mhm.
can understand the context.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't, in that circumstance, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it as the guy who is switching horses because he thinks it's going to give him another 6 months of,
Right.
not paying support because
Yeah.
there aren't temporary orders
Mhm.
that require support payment, for example.
Mhm.
I have one comment, but I also have to let my dog out, and I know you guys can edit, so I'm going to ask you to just hold on one
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
second. I'll be
Yeah.
right back. Here
My
you go.
dog often joins now from
Yeah.
the background.
Yeah.
There was one time last season that right when we started, the person's cleaning lady was there and started the vacuum the second we turned on the microphone. It was like in sync. We were like,
Yeah. Right.
really funny.
So what I wanted to follow up on the question that you had about attorneys and the whole dynamic between
Yeah.
sort of aggressive attorneys or I'll say a bad match.
Yes.
So what before we created the institute, my practice was Concilium divorce consultations.
Yeah.
And I should talk a little bit about that because we've also trained at this point a few more consultants. And part of our ecosystem of the Institute is to not only have attorneys who understand the concilium process, but more people who are consulting beyond myself.
Yeah.
So, what that process is about is helping someone before they've hired counsel
Yeah.
understand the lay of the land, both the legal process, all the possible avenues they can go down, but also what I do is I write a very detailed synopsis that's a legal, financial, psychosocial sort of analysis of a case that is overlaid with the law, that's deployed to attorneys that we think are good fits for the client. And the narrative of their story is there. So they don't have to retell it each time. It's a confidential privileged document. The attorneys read. And before the client ever walks into that attorney's door, they've read 15 pages about the case. They understand what's going on. They understand the law. They understand the priorities and the goals of the client. The client comes in with questions that we've prepared multiple attorneys the same question so that they start understanding sort of what the answers of different people are like and the nuances to those questions. So what happens is instead of somebody maybe interviewing one lawyer and saying, well, they seemed really smart or they seemed really like they knew what they were going to protect me or whatever it was that they got that felt good in that first interview. And they don't want to retell their story again. It's
Right.
exhausting to do it once. They seem good enough. all those reasons that someone might hire someone. So even if they say, I love that first attorney, I'll say, that's great. And I think they're a terrific attorney. No judgment on them at all. No order that I'm asking you to interview people in, but I want you to interview a couple more people just to hear it. And oftentimes what happens is people will say, I really did like that first person, but actually, he didn't ask me any questions and he talked a lot. And I'm not sure that's the best thing for me. Like maybe I need somebody who's more of a partner to me in this than that. Or, there are different conclusions people make over time when they start to understand that knowledge is important, but it's not the only part.
Right.
And the other part of it is, how is your partner, spouse, going to react to this person, that you're hiring? Is it a replica of you on the other side of the table? So they're angry twice as much as they were. And then there are always the questions of, they've already hired counsel. So who did they hire and who's going to work well or not work well with that person?
Right.
So there are a lot of different considerations that the consultant can make. The other thing that happens is, because the consultant stays on the case throughout it, with permission of an agreement of the counsel and the client, there are check-ins all along the way. So when a client says, I'm having a really hard time with this attorney and I thought it was a good match, but maybe it's not so good, talk to them. Absolutely, I can talk to them. And absolutely, I will say, hey, there's a disconnect. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's internal to the office. Maybe it's the associate. Maybe it's you. But let's get to the bottom of it. And as one of our practitioners, who was a really early adopter of this process and was a great attorney, said to me once, when you're on a case, it's like you're the person who will say, you've got broccoli in your teeth.
Right. You're like watching over everything.
Right.
So
Heidi, I have a question for you. So as I'm putting myself in the position of a parent who's either, thinking about, initiating a divorce, or maybe they're considering modification, or they're just, hoping that the dynamic could change. What would you say is the I don't know if I can be specific, but like, clearly the outcome is better, but like, how is it better for the kids using this process?
Well, I think in so many ways. I mean, one of the I'd say beauties of conciliation process is we don't start at the beginning. We don't start at the complaint. If I look at, I have an intake form that people complete before we ever have an initial conversation. So I have an understanding of a lot of facts of the case, just basic facts. But when I'm looking at it and I see someone has a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, my first thought is, so these people are going to be co-parenting for 20 years, like it or not. So for me, this is starting 20 years from now. So we're having a conversation about, 2044, and we're working backwards. So this is a long road.
Kind of gave me chills right there.
Right.
You're hitting home here. Yeah.
But that's really the truth of this. And so when people, it's a bit of a cold shower, because people feel like, we're getting divorced and then it'll be over.
Right.
Not really. So
Not even close.
What that means, Allie, is that when I also look at it and I say, okay, so you've got a mortgage that you got 3 years ago, and this is the interest rate, and this is the equity in the house, and I'm looking at all these other factors, and I'm saying, but in 7 years, your youngest child's going to be in middle school. Where's the middle school relative to your house? Is this still a place you'll want to live? Does it make sense to refinance and get an ARM for a certain period of time with a better interest rate, maybe? What are the solutions that we can back into on this problem if staying in this house for 30 years doesn't make sense? And maybe it's not even what you're going to want to do. So when you start thinking about not the divorce and dividing it, so how does it impact kids? It impacts kids in all sorts of ways, because I'm journeying with somebody for the long haul, and I'm backing into solutions all along the way.
Yeah. I mean, we say that all the time. Like, the divorce is like the initial, or not initial, but the hit. Like, it's one day in time.
It's an event.
And like my daughter, when we got divorced, which wasn't a really contentious divorce. I mean, incredibly traumatic, but not like fighting. We weren't in court a lot. We went to court one time. The judge signed off, done. But she was 7 months old. She's 9 now. So we're co-parenting all the time, and it's a very different, we
You're
were,
different people. I
yeah.
mean, you're different people. You've got to be different people.
Yeah.
From 9 years
Right.
ago.
Yes.
So
Right.
if you don't account for your development and the child's father's development and your child's father's development, that life's a lot more like a video than a snapshot. So that's the other, in terms of co-parenting, people so often get caught up in, it's going to be a 2-2-3 schedule, or it's going to be whatever it is. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so your child's 7 months old and maybe you're breastfeeding. But
Right.
when she goes to kindergarten, maybe it's going to be really helpful if her dad can do pickups 2 days a week.
Right.
Or how, like, these things are going to change.
Yes.
So the earlier people sort of start envisioning this,
Right.
the more that they're able to embrace this as a working solution, and getting really stuck on, this is what the court order is, and this is what we're going to apply forever. And then it's
Right.
like we're looking for ways people violated it, or were wrong, or breached
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Heidi, as well. Like, you have experience as a guardian ad litem. I'm thinking about my particular case. We did end up using a guardian ad litem, and in part it was because we just couldn't agree on the parenting time. There's more to
Al,
it.
your mic is really like wonky.
Really?
Yeah.
Light, it's quiet.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like fine sometimes, and then sorry, I should have said that earlier.
Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a little
Okay.
bit.
I moved it closer. So, we couldn't agree on the parenting schedule. We'll leave it at that. But, of course, I learned a lot going into court, right? As a family court, I know your experience, Julie, was a little different, but in Massachusetts, family court and the probate court is really about, divorce, custody, and then adoption, I guess, is the bulk of it. Am I right, Heidi?
Right.
And then
And estates,
That's okay.
right.
And
Yeah.
estates and guardianships,
So,
contracts.
sitting in the courtroom on my first court date, I saw, people fighting because a parent was, abusing drugs on their parenting time, to, a sibling that was looking for custody of a sibling because the parent, the guardian passed away. Real life issues. And then there's us two idiots, like, can't agree on who gets time with the kids. And so, of course, I could see why the judge appointed a GAL for us. Did GALs come into play less so in Concilium? And also, if you can speak to your experience as a GAL, and just briefly talk a little bit about what that's like for a family for some folks who haven't been through that.
Yeah.
Before you jump in, Heidi, let me just talk for a second about what Concilium provides to the practitioners that are involved, because I think that will help lead to an answer to your question. So our tapestry members are the professionals, the financial professionals, the attorneys, the judges, the therapists who have gone through our mastery course, where they have, that is designed particularly for each of their professions. And the mastery course is the entree into it's the ticket into the tapestry. And the reason that we require people to go through the mastery course before they join the tapestry is because then they are all using that same approach. Then they have the foundation and the tools to be that council of wise advisors and to build that council of wise advisors. But what we give people in the mastery courses specific to their profession is the tools that they need that are unique to the Concilium process for them to be able to do that job. And we talk about the tools of doing those in-depth interviews, for example, that Heidi talks about. We talk about the tools of active listening. We talk about the tools that help people plan for the future, including something that we call the restructuring covenant that we can talk about if you're interested in that. But just the different pieces that people can have in place. And the process choice is one of those tools, right? Are we going to do collaborative law? Are we going to do litigation? Are we going to do mediation? Are we going to do arbitration? Are we going to do conciliation? One of those tools in the case can be the use of a guardian ad litem or child. What we have here in Colorado is a child and family investigator, or a parental responsibilities evaluator, or a child's legal representative is a lawyer for the child. So there are a lot of different tools, but one of the things that we talk about in the mastery course is looking at that long term, looking at the client's agency choices, looking at where you start and where you want to end up, and what tools you can use. So I think just that overall vision of and to answer your question, Allie, and I want Heidi to get into her experience, but overall, a guardian ad litem is a tool. Courts often appreciate a tool like that because it gives them a different outside perspective, but it's a tool that it is used and can be used thoughtfully and well, whatever process you use it in, and particularly Concilium practitioners, attorneys, and and judges who are trained in Concilium are going to be mindful and thoughtful about when and how to use those tools.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess my thinking is that, I love the idea of sort of how these tools, it's like, what tools are in your toolkit? I guess is the question I would ask, right? Like you're a professional. It's just like you can only be as good as you are equipped to some degree, right? It's like, so what you bring to the table is what you have to offer somebody. So a Concilium practitioner is coming to the table with a lot more tools than someone who's just a lawyer. I don't mean to denigrate anybody, but I think it's just you have a fuller view and you have more tools at your disposal. So your clients can't but benefit from that, because you know that as a practitioner, when you have a question on child development specific to a family, and if you can say, first of all, I love this about Concilium and the tapestry, we've started to have people say, now I've had cases where everyone's Concilium trained. The attorneys on both sides of the case are Concilium trained. So I know I can call the other attorney and say, hey, I think we need to engage with somebody, like as attorneys, about child development, because they've got kids 6 and 8 and they're sort of going back and forth on the schedule. And do you think it would be helpful to bring in that other voice? This can happen in a voluntary way if people are all on board, right? So when attorneys get that and we say, hey, we've created sort of a shared vision with these folks and this is what they see happening, I'm not really sure that's going to play out well for this younger child who's autistic and has a lot of problems with transitions, and this may not really work for this family, even though it's what they want. Do you think it would help to get somebody else's vantage point on this? So those conversations can happen not in I'm posturing for a motion session where I'm going to be, asking the judge to appoint someone because this attorney, my spouse or whatever, is inadequate in these 5 ways or whatever. So that is, not really thinking when you're, look, I hope that when I've been a GAL, I've added in positive ways to a case, and I've certainly just as many times probably represented children as an attorney through the, attorneys representing children piece, and also by appointment of the court to represent children. So I feel like in those roles, often what judges have been looking for is for someone to come in with the voice of the child, who's not going to just be posturing and positional about what they want for themselves as an outcome, because it seems more honest if someone's coming in and saying, this is what seems to be best for the child. That's a very different place to be than this is what I want because I think I'm better equipped. I'm a better parent. I'm a better person. I'm a better whatever, So that's sort of a different conversation.
Wow, and I can imagine that they can provide maybe a more in-depth look, because I feel like a GAL, at least in my experience, it was really like a snapshot in time, and
Mhm.
you only get a certain amount of time to spend
Absolutely.
with any of you. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's also, it's expensive. So
It
if
is.
you're, if I'm a GAL and I'm going out to interview children and parties and like all of that, is not that it's not effective, but you're also, if you're talking to a 10-year-old, that 10-year-old who's 12 by the time,
Yeah.
maybe, it's like these reports aren't always, by the time they're going in, they're and being used, sometimes they're pretty stale. So then you need to update it, and, that can be
So
problematic.
would you say, I mean, a team of 3 people, does it make the experience of going through a divorce more expensive?
It's a great question. I guess I think there are sort of like, there are, I don't want to say hidden, but there are expenses that are sort of transparent and there are
Yeah.
expenses that are not transparent. And I guess in this process, I'd say expenses are transparent. So at the beginning, if you pay a consultant up front, there's an additional cost.
Yeah.
But it is going to 9 times out of, well, I think, in a great, I don't have statistics on it, but I think in the great majority of times, it will be cost effective for someone to be able to lay out the plan and have the consultant say to the attorney, look, these 8 things they're good on. Don't muck with them. We've got that set.
Right.
And you're laying the course. And, I sort of feel like as an attorney, I can do this, or some other people can do this who are attorneys and seasoned practitioners, to say, I know the goals and the rules and the process here, but we don't need to do these 5 things. Discovery on this makes no sense. Don't do it. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of
Yeah.
money. The judge isn't going to want to see it. So,
Right.
so that's one answer to that. The other, skilled conciliant practitioners will be able to say, I think this would really be helpful to bring in a mental health person right about now, or
Yeah.
you can hold off on that. Maybe only one person needs a financial advisor because the other person's been handling all the finances and they need to get up to speed.
Yep.
Maybe we need a neutral and we don't need to pay 2 experts, and they can agree that we're just going to sort of like disclose everything and then sort of try to figure out the best possible outcome here financially. So I think there are ways that you can sort of pre-think a process instead of just everybody goes and hires their multiple experts, because that's what, we do as robust and zealous litigators.
Right.
Like that's what we're supposed to do.
And to be clear, just in response to Ali's question, not every case requires all 3 professionals. And I think that's again, it goes back to that toolkit, right? We're providing the Concilium process toolkit that is bespoke for every case and every client.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah, that is helpful because, yeah, I guess if you don't need the tool, it's there, but you don't have
Right.
to use it. Right.
Right. But it's there, and that you can call on someone, even if it's just a quick phone call. I mean, an example is one of our tapestry members is a domestic violence expert. She testifies in family law cases and criminal cases around the country. So she's a great resource. If people, a Concilium attorney is thinking, I'm not sure if the guy I just talked to is an abuser or not, or if the woman that I just talked to is really subject to coercive control. They can pick up the phone and call that other tapestry member and get their questions answered in a way that is going to be much more cost effective for that client than saying, oh well, I need to hire this expert. No, they can have a half-hour conversation with at no cost or low cost to be able to resolve that question in their mind.
Amazing. I know we're almost out of time. I guess my last question, Jill, if you will indulge me, is how do you find a Concilium trained professional? How does that work?
So our website is conciliuminstitute.com. We can put it in the chat room.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. So practitioners are listed on there by state, and their bios are in there, and we've been having a little bit of trouble with some of the websites, so I'm not sure that everyone's posted yet, but that's one great source. They can certainly reach out through the Institute website and ask that question if they're having any trouble asking for a Concilium trained practitioner. Is in Massachusetts, certainly conciliumdivorce.com brings you to my website, where there'll be I can answer questions for anybody locally in terms of anything that they might have. But the Institute website is where it will house the directory ultimately of all trained practitioners in the three professions. So it's really it's the go-to place to find an attorney who's Concilium trained, and for that matter, financial advisors and mental health therapists. I think the beauty of this, I'll just wrap up saying that, I heard for so many years from therapists who would call and say, "Can I just ask you a question? Can you tell me the difference between like a bench trial and a motion session, or my client says they're going to trial, but they've only filed 6 months ago. Like, is that possible?"
Yeah.
So part of it is, it's like you go to Italy and you don't speak the language, you're not going to have quite the same time as if you do. And I think for each profession, we wanted to be translators.
Yeah.
So for financial advisors, for them to understand what was going on in the legal field and in psychology, it was helpful to have a common language. So Concilium is a common language, and it also translates between these professions. So it really allows people to sort of have a more facility and a better ability to sort of understand what everybody's talking about.
It just seems way more holistic. Like,
That's a great word. Yep.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're delighted to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on, Julie and Heidi.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Would love that.
Please.
All right.
They're so awesome, right?
Oh my God.
I know. I wrote down a note. I took one note. I'm so good. And because this was my favorite part, coming from like my MBA businessy stuff, is when they said a family doesn't divorce, they restructure. I kind of I don't know that I 100% agree with that, but I agree that parents get divorced, right? But your family, I mean, your kids aren't divorcing your ex.
No, and I think that that's part of, like, when you think about that for kids, like, you're still their parents and you are still their family. And so I think about okay, so here's the plug too. My youngest daughter there's on the app Headspace, which, by the way, I would love it if they sponsor us, but also it's a really amazing app. And they have this one like short series, animated series called Unicorn Island, and it's all about this girl named, I don't remember her name now, but she's maybe it's Lily. And she like goes off to her little unicorn island when like she's feeling upset or worried or whatever. And one of the episodes talks about how like the older brother's like, we're not a family anymore. And then she explores that concept and realizes that they are still a family. And it's all about a lot about like managing anxiety and feelings, but the fact that the parents are divorced make it a very relevant thing for my 9-year-old. So Unicorn Island, check it out on Headspace. But yeah, I think that the problem, and Heidi said this in the beginning, that like, divorce is a legal process, and it's making something that should not be like so like legal,
Right.
like rooted in law,
Right.
as because you're dissolving this partnership of a marriage.
Right.
But when it's a family, it's not like
Right. It's like people. It's not money. It's not like dividing. Like, well, I mean, it is money, but it's not profit and loss. It's not, so.
Well, and if we're gonna talk about that, something that's been really bugging me is like, you talk about how, the assets are divided, and it's not, people go into court, myself included, thinking that they're going to get justice, and really it's more like a how do we split these assets up? And I'm like, and now I'm over here like, excuse me, women only make, I did the voice, yeah, I know.
You said you weren't doing the voice.
I wasn't going to do the voice. I'm going to get thrown off the internet. Women only make what, 81 cents on the dollar for men. So can we include that in our calculus of?
Are we going to get on this keywords right now? Because I'm ready to talk about this type of stuff.
Right?
Here's one thing, and I don't typically say this out loud or to people in public, but something that I think. And I recognize that I am biased towards moms. I'm fine with that. I think that I'm open enough to dads, and I can be intellectually understanding of fathers. But saying that, this is something I feel, especially with the 50-50 custody, and I'm not saying that in every situation that this is the case, but oftentimes, or even splitting stuff, I think when men are successful in their career, it's oftentimes because they have a supportive partner at home.
100%.
A woman that's doing the kids, doing the other stuff, all that stuff. And so then when they get divorced, they get like mad that the woman's taking the money. When a woman is successful, in her career and all of those things, it's usually despite the man. From what I've seen. It's not because they're there holding down the fort. It's because she is doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it gets a little tricky for me in child support guidelines and that type of stuff, because I understand what they're saying, like men and women are equal, right? So we want equal, but in practice it's different. And so it's a challenge for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is all this is a hot take, but I mean, I would love for us to have a discussion about amongst our community about, what is fair, what is, and also, by the way, what protections are women getting? Because I can guarantee you, another hot take, that there aren't any women beating the shit out of their husbands and threatening them, and
well, it's certainly not as many. I mean, it could.
I mean, right? I'm sure it exists, right? You can't say none,
right?
But
it's not close. It's like the bear thing, like
Yeah, I would pick the bear every time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave me alone in the woods with a strange man.
Right, 100%.
So sorry, my feminism is showing.
Happy tonight.
I'm a little salty. My feminism is showing.
We're fine with that.
But I do think we need to explore some of these topics in our community. So more to come there. But
yes. Are you ready for our story? Because
oh my gosh, we have to do the story. Sorry, I've been rolling on.
I like it because it's a little different, and I appreciate and always want people be creative. Tell your story and however you want to tell it. Like some people do it very literal, telling the exact facts.
Yeah.
And this one's a little more creative, which I really appreciated. So thank you for sharing. So I will share now. Once upon a time, there was a single mom who was raising her son all on her own. She worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, balancing shifts at a grocery store and freelancing as a graphic designer in the late hours. Between work, house chores, and helping her son with his homework, her days were long and her nights were even longer. The few hours of sleep she managed to grab were filled with dreams of peace and rest. Every morning she woke up with heavy eyes and a to-do list longer than the day itself. She would pack her son's lunch, drop him at school, and rush off to her job with barely a moment to think. In her quiet moments, she felt the weight of loneliness, exhaustion, and doubt, but she also felt something else, a fierce, unshakable love. One night, after her son was fast asleep, she sat by his bedside and watched him breathe softly. His little face was peaceful, safe, and content, completely unaware of the sacrifices she was making. She remembered how he hugged her so tightly every morning, and the way his face lit up whenever she picked him up from school. Those were the moments she cherished most. She was exhausted, yes, and often stretched beyond her limits. But as she watched her son sleep soundly, she knew she'd do it all over again without hesitation. Every sleepless night, every long hour, every aching muscle was worth it to her, because no matter how tired she was, her love for her son was greater than her exhaustion. For him she'd do it all again in a heartbeat. And as she turned off his light and closed his door, she found a little more strength for tomorrow.
That's a really sweet story. And it resonates too, right? The whole idea of, you know, being epically exhausted, but you keep going and you keep trying for your kid, for their best, following what's best for them, and the sacrifices that moms make for their kids, whether they're single moms or not, right?
Right. So true. And I think it's nice to, I try to do this, I'm not perfect at it, is just, especially when things are hard, like find those little moments, because those are the things that will get you through, like that like little bedtime chat where it's like so silly and fun and you're connecting with your kid, or whatever. It's like those are the moments that you need to store up for the
You
hard
really do. Like, yeah, we should talk about connecting with your kid at some point, because that I think has helped a lot for mine.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're excited.
We'll see you soon, we hope.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks for joining us for Co-Parenting and Coffee. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice on any subject matter. If you liked our podcast, feel free to drop us a review. We'd appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you next time for a cup of coffee and a chat with another expert on co-parenting.